Welcome back to another episode of the South by East podcast where we discuss music, culture, and everything in between. Brail, where are we at today?
Man, popular artist Gucci Mane, I mean, he took over in the mid-2000s, was doing his thing.
Yeah.
Artist from the South, ended up going to prison, having some crazy things happen. And he opened up on the Breakfast Club, popular hip-hop podcast and radio show, about his battles with schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And just some great statements here from his wife and how he dealt with that. And so just wanted to jump into a little bit of that today. Let's check out the clip.
For you, what was it like just trying to protect the business that you guys have built while
I have a
he's
system.
personally...
I take his apps off his phone. First thing I do, I delete Instagram. I delete everything. Even if I got to change his password, I'm changing it because I don't need the public to know he's having an episode. You realize you'd never know about any other episodes since September 13th because I control that. Because you're not going on Instagram, you're not going on Twitter, it's deleted. You know, and I just control everything at home. And now before the episodes come, I catch it. So that's why he hasn't had another one. And how you catch that is he doesn't speak to you. He wants to be left alone. He don't eat. He does not sleep. Text messages, there's a period after each word. And I'm like, you're going through an episode. You're sick. No, I'm not. Ain't nothing wrong with me. Why do you think that? You're not speaking to me. Well, there's nothing to talk about. I said, well, that's not how you speak to your wife. And I'm like, you're sick. And we snap out of it right then.
Wow. You know, we heard Kim this week.
Man, when I saw that clip, a lot of things hit me about it. The first one, though, was just having someone that loves you and knows you well enough and cares about you enough to protect you from yourself and to protect you and your legacy from your battles with mental health. Growing up, man, I had times where I really struggled and I was not myself. And I can only imagine being an adult in the position I'm at now if I hadn't gotten help and had people around me that are like, hey, man, here's some ways that you can manage these symptoms and get through some of these pieces. And Gucci, even in this interview, he talks later on about how there were people who knew that I was struggling. And when I go through these manic episodes, I start giving stuff away. And so they stuck around. They let me do whatever I needed to do, as crazy as I sounded, as I looked, because they were getting watches and cars, and they were benefiting from where I was at, man. But to see his wife talk about, man, for one, I know you well enough to know when something is wrong. And I'm not here for the benefit. I'm trying to get you healthy as quickly as possible and to minimize the damage that you might do, man. That spoke to me.
I see a couple things in this. One, when we refuse to live with boundaries in one area of our lives, it normally causes us to have more restrictions and boundaries later in our life.
Sure about that.
And so he was talking about like some of the drugs and different things of that nature. And just the way he was living brought on some of the schizophrenia and everything. And so, and now because of that, his wife is at a point where she's controlling the cell phone. She has control of the apps.
Yeah.
Same thing, let's go with me, man. Look, I feel the creaks in my bones from living without restriction when it came to how I took care of my body and how I ate and different things of that nature earlier in life. And it's probably gonna mean later in life I have less autonomy because I'm gonna need more physical help because of ailments. And so it's like when we refuse to live within boundaries and with some self-restriction, some self-leadership, often it causes us to need more external restriction and boundaries placed, and we lose more autonomy than if we would have taken the responsibility and accountability to implement that. The other thing, like you said, is to get to the point where Gucci Mane is with his wife, you have to let somebody close enough to you to know you. Yeah. And I see this thing going on right now, Brail, where especially when it comes to discipleship, the hardest element to get across to people is not that Jesus is Lord, is that they need other people in their lives.
Right.
and other people need some intimate knowledge and to be close to them and to know and to be able to speak into their lives and to have some say into their lives. And that's one of those deals. And then it's like often when we do decide to give that access to somebody, we give it to the wrong people. What you see with him was like he was saying like he was giving jewelry away and everything, and the people stayed around as long as that. But now that he has somebody in his life, his wife, who was having, stopping that, then they didn't come around or anything else, right? And it's like often we don't want the people in our life that speak the hard truth to us. Mm-hmm. We want the people in our life that co-sign on a lot of foolishness, and they co-sign on our lack of restrictions, our lack of boundaries. Mm-hmm. Not always because of what they materially gain, but sometimes from what they gain from entertainment.
Yep, they enjoy seeing us struggle.
Or just we become their punchline for Dave Chappelle spoke about when he left Comedy Central, where he turned down that $100 million contract.
Yeah. And
they asked him why, and he said, "Because one day I got to work and I realized they wasn't laughing with me. They were laughing at me." Mm-hmm. And he said that changed some things. It changed the way I saw how I operated in that ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like one of those things, and it's cruel. I mean, I think here's the deal. I think it's cruel for a group of people to keep somebody else around because they like to make jokes on the back end and laugh at them. Mm-hmm. I mean, that happens way too often.
Yeah.
And we should think twice before we allow people around us to turn someone else we know into a caricature. Mm. That is cruel, and is denying that person the infinite dignity, value, and worth that they do possess because they're made in the image of God. And so it's just thinking about those things, man.
And I think another piece of this is a big part of mental health. When I do these work in process concerts where I bring licensed professionals with me to do mental health concerts that are hip hop and R&B based in our local schools. And when I do those, I often ask students what mental health means to them, and then I'll read this definition. And one of the first parts of the definition is being able to effectively manage the stresses in our lives. And for a lot of people, so for Gucci Mane, he shares in the longer clip when you guys watch it that one of the things that he did is as he was going through all this stress with his case, he was like, man, I smoked a lot of weed and I drank a lot of lean, and I kept doing those things, and that was my coping mechanism to deal with the stress. But it didn't actually deal with the stress. It allowed me to escape from the stress, and eventually it broke his brain down to where then he had psychosis and no longer had a grip on reality. And I learned this week, a friend of mine was sharing with me about Dr. Bruce Perry's insights on addiction. And one of the things he talked about is addiction overloads our reward system. We have a reward system in our brain. When we do things that we should be doing, our brain actually rewards us for those things. It rewards us for sweet and fatty foods because we need sugars and we need fat in our body. It rewards us for exercise. We get endorphins for things like that. Sex gives us a reward, but also ethyl alcohol rewards us. And it can be dangerous because alcohol in and of itself causes the brain to produce rewards, but then alcohol also reduces the physical feelings of stress. So alcohol not only makes your brain go, ooh, this is nice, I'm gonna reward you for this, but it also makes you feel like whatever you're going through is not a big deal anymore. And so it's like you're tricking your body, you're lying to your body. You're going, hey, it's no longer that big of a deal, and I feel better. And so that's one of those reasons why it can be so addicting. And most things that we get addicted to, they tap out our reward system to where we don't even get to enjoy the other things, and we've lost track of reality. And this is where this brother is, where he's like, I did that so much, I couldn't come back down to reality. And our lack of practical skills to cope with and deal with and manage the traumas and stresses in our lives often leads us to overeat, oversex, stay up too late, work too hard, and it causes us to rewire our brains from the way God has designed them to work to where now we live a lie. And that's one of the things that really hits me here, man, is it's like, man, that's why the work, we talked in the inbox, man, we do work in the schools with a thing called Campus Connection. And we do a lot of stuff around here. Scent offers a lot of things around mental health and substance use disorder help. And those things are important, not just so that people have an extra quality of life, but because they take us out of the firing range for the vices that would swallow us whole.
Man, this is... When I realized, man, just... right now, we're dealing with, when we're filming this, we're dealing with the SNAP disruption. Mm-hmm. And when we started first pulling resources together for this effort to kind of help our neighborhood and just communities, like all the communities are through this, someone first mentioned, like, some of you might feel like this, like COVID. And I'm like, fam, look, I hate even bringing that up, man. And and I remember all the stats of how many people fell into substance use addiction from COVID, man, just trying to cope with all the stuff. And I'm like, man, it's going to go up. And then it's like, while in my community, so many struggle with access to so many things because of transportation, there's an overabundance of liquor stores. Yep. Where we can't access the jobs and the training and everything else we need.
We got access to excess in these other...
In these things, man, that is like, the problem is still going to be there. After this crisis, the problem is still going to be there. And that's and it's like, man, that's why I keep saying, like, more food is not enough for us in this situation. And why are there so many liquor stores in my neighborhood? Right. Why? And do we need that much access? Mm-hmm. And here's the deal. Look, man, you're permitted to drink. Yeah. As long as you don't get drunk, man. But I also know there's a greater temptation, as you're just pointing out, when you have a lot of stressors in your life, there's a greater temptation to overindulge in those things that make it seem like it's not that bad. And man, it just, as you was talking, man, it was just hitting me some kind of way to just think about what is the stress of this time right now, and parents struggling to feed their kids and struggling, to have a WIC, or struggling to have childcare where they can still go to work and they trying to figure that out, or we're entering the winter months and, struggling to have utility help that may be there. And that's why, for me, the economic mobility piece is so big. I keep saying that because I'm like, I hate people being in a spot where they're always so vulnerable. And Brene Brown says something like, hey, if you feel like you're in a briar patch with no shell, the answer is not necessarily getting a bigger shell. Sometimes it's getting out of the briar patch. And it's like, man, it's like, I want the people around me that I get to see and interact with every day to not be as vulnerable tomorrow as they were today. Yeah. And that's including to drugs and alcohol and different things of that nature. We got enough stressors on us, man, that could send us into these spaces as it is. Right. And so we don't need anything that makes it easier to access mental, socio-emotional imbalance problems.
No. And man, here's an encouragement, and then I'll be done. But here's an encouragement. One of the other things that he talked about is Dr. Bruce Perry uses this metaphor of a bucket. And on the picture of the bucket, it had different things that trigger your reward system. And there at the bottom was relationships. No, I'm sorry. So at the bottom of it, how it was is there was a label on the bucket that said impoverished. Then there was a label that said adequate. And then there was satisfied or satiated. Like, you're full. I'm good. I have what I need. And as he laid it down, he's like, man, here is how in a healthy person's life, how it looks. And they had relationships, and then they had the food and the other pieces. But at the top was this other topic that really, I was like, wow. And it was beliefs. One of the things that triggers our reward system, one of the things our brains are designed to reward us for, is acting in a way that is consistent with what we believe to be right. Giving people purpose through our churches, through volunteer opportunities, through education and mobility. Those things are actually essential to safeguarding people against falling into addictions and self-destructive behaviors. And without purpose, you can be adequate, but you can never be filled.
Yeah. All right, man, look, I wholeheartedly agree with that, man. I try to tell people all the time, just get out there and serve. Get out there and have a purpose for something outside of yourself that's greater than yourself that you can't accomplish by yourself.
Yep.
And
for me, man, it just reinforces how important my faith is. And I know that not everybody has the same belief system as me.
Yeah.
But man, fam, when people say Jesus is the answer, Jesus is the reason, Jesus is the, like, having that type of commitment and faith and purpose that also leads you towards healthy behaviors in your life that continue to shield you and reinforce that. Yeah. That's a powerful thing. But where are y'all at, man? What do y'all think about this topic?
Yes.
What things come to mind for you, and what things have given you purpose in your life? Areas that have helped you become healthy, or that you've seen help other people become healthy. We'd love to see you share them. Continue to comment, like, subscribe, and please share this with others. Share this video with others, man. That really helps us out in the algorithm, and that allows us to continue to come back and see you next week
in the intersection.